Welcome to Divine Journey Yoga. Trish here. Let's get started. Take a few deep breaths in through the nose and out the mouth. Feeling your body start to settle, your mind coming back inside your body. Today is Yoga for Osteoporosis, and I took my list of classes from one of the chapters in Dr. Loren Fishman's book called Yoga for Osteoporosis, and this chapter and these 11 poses specifically focus on balance. And as you move through them today, just keep in mind what's going on and which muscles are being activated, so that you can notice what is needed for good balance. And I think balance is really more about agility, the ability to move in and out of our movements in our lives, whether we're standing up from a chair, reaching for something in the cabinet, or getting in and out of the car. Balance is always at play. So rather than standing on one leg, which we will not be doing much of today, we are going to be working on all these beautiful muscles right around the core, trying to continue to strengthen them and help us grow in stability and agility and therefore balance. We will definitely be using blocks and straps and a chair, and also 2 blankets. If you are interested, at the end we might do an optional shoulder stand. Let's go ahead and bring the hands together at the heart, just bowing the head. Maybe setting an intention to take good care of yourself today. Noticing what is working for you and what isn't, giving yourself full permission to come out of a pose sooner or to stay longer. Take one more deep breath. And then wiggling the fingers. Let's lean back, take our hands behind us. Lift the knees and just stretch the legs one by one. And then we'll come back into our seated position. Feel free to roll around a little bit of movement in the hips and the knees, making sure your spine is staying pretty long and straight. Trying not to let it round. And then we'll come into butterfly pose or cobbler's pose. That is with the feet, the soles of the feet together. And first, I like to slide my feet forward. The knees are just coming apart slightly or lightly. And you could even put something underneath the knees if you like that support. I actually think I'm going to also sit up on my blanket for this one because I can feel my low back rounding itself out, and I want to be able to tip it forward again instead of getting that roundedness. Okay, great. Now, the thing here is to play with the distance between the feet and the hips. So one of the ways to get a little deeper into this shape is to actually lift the hips up and scoot them slightly inward rather than bringing the feet in toward the glutes. So of course now I'm sliding off my blanket. So finding your way into a stretch. We're looking for a stretch on the inside of the legs right here. Once we find that stretch, whatever depth is working for us today, then we're just going to take the hands forward. I'm letting them rest lightly on the ankles, and I'm going to lift my heart. Maybe even send the back of my head slightly back toward the wall behind me. The chin is parallel. I'm going to close my eyes and take about 5 deep breaths here. Just noting where I'm feeling stretch, where I'm feeling some muscle engagement, hopefully up the 2 sides of the spine on the back of the body. And then blinking the eyes open, I'm going to reach back behind me once again, drawing my knees toward each other, flattening the feet. I'm going to dig my heels into my mat gently, not a deep dig, and then I'm going to lift my heart, rocking my pelvis, my belly forward as the feet are kind of anchoring me into this pose. Maybe wiggle those toes, feel that arching in the spine. So good for our backs. One more big breath here. And then I'm gonna come up slowly and begin to stretch my legs out nice and wide into our straddle pose or wide angle. Nice and flat with the feet, wiggling those toes still. You can always keep your knees a little more bent, even flattening the feet. That's a great option because it really keeps the pelvis rocked forward here. And this is just a simple wide angle forward fold. I'm just gonna gently lean forward, but my spine is gonna stay long and tall and straight. And the movement is completely hinging in the hips, and my inside of my legs start to feel this right away, and then up those sides of the back. Those erector muscles are so important for keeping us straight and balanced. And I'm just gonna breathe here. Some people like to take their hands in front, give themselves a little support. I like to let the weight of my body kind of add to the depth of the inner leg stretch, and also let my back muscles work a little more here. Guiding the breath up to the collarbones and then in letting it go, using my belly to press all the air out. Maybe 2 more full torso breaths. Trying to soften those shoulders a little bit. One more time. And lifting up with the strength of my core, the hands come behind once again. Lift the heart, slide the feet up onto the floor. I'm gonna heel toe them together, just get a little bit of movement in the feet. And then I'm gonna swing the feet both together over to one side and let the knees rock forward. And the first part of the twist is always turning away from the feet. So I'm just gonna lift my arms and swing them, and then let them drop down as I lift my heart into this twist and take deep, long breaths, feeling that stretching on the inhale and the releasing on the exhale. Feel free to add a turning of the neck. I like to start by looking over my shoulder, kind of getting the lay of the land, and then looking over the front shoulder, adding a little bit to the twisting. And maybe 2 more breaths. Gently coming back to center, the hands slide back again, and I lift my knees up with the strength of my core and float them to the other side. Nice and tall, and I'm still sitting on my blanket. Mostly the hip that's away from the feet is getting on top of that blanket, and then I'm twisting in that direction toward the open side of the body and breathing 5 deep breaths here. Moving slowly and mindfully, we reach back behind us again, and I'm gonna swing my legs over and come down onto my side. So moving those blankets out of the way, coming down into seed pose, especially stretching out the arm, the armpit that's on the floor, reaching out with that hand, making a little pillow for my head. The other hand's gonna stay in front. Take 2 breaths here, steadying yourself again, really feeling present in your body and in the room. Good. Let's start with our knee lift, clamshell, just up and down 1 or 2 times, keeping the feet together, lifting the knee alone. Good. And then stretching out both legs nice and long. We're just gonna lift the legs, the top leg, 1 and then 2 times. Good. And then rebend the knees, and you'll see I'm lifting the strength of my whole legs there together, and then I'm gonna open and close the top knee 2 times. And that's our sequence here. After 2 repetitions, we stretch the legs back out, and then lift and lower that top leg a few times. And we're just engaging that core here, moving the lower body with the strength of that core as we move from knees bent to legs long. So just a couple more times, just warming up the hip joint, lifting and lowering a few times. And then let's just let go of the movement in the hip, the top hip, and let's just move back and forth from the knees bent to the legs long a few times. Let that bottom leg touch the floor, bend the knees and bring them forward. Yeah, you guys feeling that? Good strengthening. And I'm using that front arm to help leverage the weight of my lower body. Just once more. Long, and then bending the knees forward. Good. And I'm gonna just pull the top knee into my chest, wiggle the toes, open the leg up. You can stay here with the knee bent or press the foot up in the air. You can let your toes be any distance from your head that works for you. I'm just sliding my hand behind the knee to help stretch up the leg. If you can reach your toes, feel free, just hold on to your pants, your leg, wherever you are. We're just gonna take a few deep breaths here. Trying to relax that body that's on the mat, the side of the body there. Gently bending the knee and restacking those knees. Very nice. Let's come up onto our elbow for a little side plank. I'm stacking my shoulder right over that elbow joint. That's one of the ways to keep this joint in the shoulder stable. Now, if this is hurting your shoulder, then you're just gonna go right back down and not worry too much about this. There's some other options you can do if the shoulder is hurting. So let's start by just using the hand in front of us, pressing into the knees and the feet as we lift the hips up and then lower them down. And this is our sketch or our first level of our side plank, which is a great place to start. It's definitely using all of the muscles, strengthening and working that core for our balance. Good. Now, if that isn't what works for your shoulder, you could have the legs stretched out, the arms stretched out, and lift and lower from there. It's a lot harder actually to lift and lower with your shoulder on the ground, so you could try that if you want to. It uses a little bit different muscles, but still very similar. Okay, now let's see about going a little deeper. Let's stretch the legs out a little farther. We'll add a little bit of shading or color to our sketch here. I'm gonna press into that elbow on the floor using my hand in front of me and lift my hips up and down just 2 times. Good. This is already a lot harder. Then I'm gonna take the top foot and place it in front of my leg and do that a few times. And I can use the strength of this leg, and I love that work that's going on in the thigh there. Good, just 2 times. Now this is just for fun. Coming up onto the hand now, hopefully it's pretty much under the shoulder. It might need to be a little bit walked forward. And again, with the knees slightly bent, we can lean into those knees and lift and lower the hips. Try not to lock that elbow. Use your hand in front of you as much as you like. And then for those of us that like full color, we might want to go all the way into that full side plank, lifting all the way up, pressing into that bottom foot, and I'm falling over. And of course you can place the foot in front to help stabilize, lift it up, hang out here in your side plank. One more deep breath. And gently relax. And we're gonna slowly come up to seated, bring the legs forward and swing them over to the other side so we can stretch out on this side. Okay, hopefully we're getting a little bit work going here, a little bit of warmth building. So first we're in our seed pose, relaxing. Let's take a few deep breaths, catch our breath. Side planks are always hard work. All right, let's start with a few clamshells. The feet stay together, the top knee lifts and lowers a few times. Feel free to readjust those knees to wherever that works best for your hip. Nice. And then straightening the legs out nice and long. We're gonna lift and lower the top leg. 2 times, and then move into that sequence using the hand in front of you to leverage the weight of the legs as we bend them, and lift and lower the top knee twice, and then straighten them and lift and lower a few times, And this side you might have more energy or less, so you might do more or less of these repetitions. And eventually we're just going to move into bending the knees forward and then straightening the legs out, feeling that gentle working in the core. You can really feel the belly have to tighten up as we lift the weight of those lower legs. Good. All right. And then we're going to end with the knees bent, coming out at almost a 90-degree angle. And we're going to pull the top knee in and then open that leg up, pointing the knee up toward the sky, and then maybe pointing the foot up and taking a couple deep breaths here, just enjoying the stretch. Restacking the knees, taking a deep breath, and we're going to come up onto our elbow. Again, you can try this on the floor, and we'll try it on this side for that variation. The first level, or that first very simple sketch of this shape and this pose, is to simply lift and lower the hips with the knees bent forward, lifting up and down, feeling the weight, leveraging it in the shoulder and the hips, and you can use the hand in front to help. Just a couple times is good. Take a deep breath, and then maybe start to straighten the legs out. See how that feels. Lift and lower a few times here. Let's go ahead and see what happens if we are not going to be using our shoulder and we want to have it stretched out. What does that feel like? I'm going to rebend my knees and try to lift and lower my hips off the floor. It's a lot of work. Maybe that's why we don't do it that way. All right, I'm coming back up onto my shoulder. I'm going to plant my foot in front and lift and lower. I'm still on my elbow. The long leg, my bottom leg is stretched out. Top leg is bent in front. Good. And we can keep going. We can rebend the knees, stacking them, come up onto our hand. And again, with the knees and the feet on the floor, just lift and lower the hips a few times. Good. And you can always go backwards at this point, go back down if that was better for you. Or you can keep going, seeing how far you want to go today, stretching those legs out. Lift up those hips. Whew. And then maybe settle back down and cross the foot over in front. Come back up for your final wide open side plank pose with a couple deep breaths. Nice. And I'm just going to bring my hand down, roll onto my knees, hands and knees, twist out that wrist I was just on. Take a few cat-cows or hip swings. And then we'll do a little bit of headstand prep. That's not what we ever call this pose, but it is in fact what it's doing. It's dolphin pose, where we put our elbows on the mat, probably right under our shoulders. I like to bring my hands together, especially since that's how we recommend headstand. And you can feel the muscles that are working here. I'm going to curl my toes under, start to lift my knees off the floor, and maybe not go very high, and you immediately start to feel the working up in the top of the shoulders. And you can lift and lower a few times, letting the head drop toward your hands, toward that space between your elbows. Eventually you might straighten the legs, walk the feet in slightly, coming into this dolphin variation of down dog. Take a breath or two. And then bring those knees back down, coming back up onto hands and knees. We're going to slowly come up to standing. So that might mean just shifting back and stepping a foot forward, and then the other, or taking your down dog and stepping into that forward fold until you're ready to stand all the way up. Okay, this is where we use the chair. Just going to take the chair and place it right in the middle of my mat, maybe kind of toward the back edge. And my chair is really close to my wall. It might help if you push it up against a bed, a cabinet, anything that helps you feel a little more stable there. Okay, so we'll do a couple of chair squats first, just to have some fun. We're just gonna bend the knees, Sink down as if we're gonna sit on the chair, but we're not gonna sit all the way down. We're just gonna hover above the seat of the chair and then stand up. And this, of course, is practice so that we can stand up from the side of our bed, from our kitchen table, from the toilet. All of those wonderful independent movements that we want to keep making in our lives. And then eventually we're going to go ahead and sit down. And I'm going to grab my blanket so that I've got a little bit of cushioning there. Okay, sitting down, scooting all the way to the front of the chair. My feet are right under my knees. My heels are under the knees, so they're pretty stable. I'm just going to take a few deep breaths. This is our sitting mountain pose. Feel the length of the spine. Enjoy that length. And I'm going to begin my first pose by opening one leg wide and kind of scooting over toward that edge of the chair. And that foot is going to be my front foot, the leg that I just opened wide. And the other foot, I'm going to drop the knee down toward the floor, curl the toes under so this hip now is dropping a little bit. And I'm going to start to turn toward that front leg and start to straighten out the back leg. And I want to plant the foot on the floor so that the toes are pointing straight toward that long edge, and the outer edge of the foot is parallel to the end of the mat. Good. And you'll notice that I have to kind of open my shoulders to do that, which is good. My hips are drawing my shoulders open. I'm going to lower my forearm to my thigh. Now, if you're in an uncomfortable position in the chair, kind of scoot around a little bit so you can get comfy. And this is the pose right here. Do you recognize it? Extended side angle. With that shoulder rolling up, you can take the hand back, reach for the chair, and get this beautiful stretch across the front of the chest. I love that. But we're rocking our pelvis forward, so it's a slight back bend here. Push into the soles of your feet. And then, of course, you could lift that arm straight up or take it over the head, reaching it upward and getting that long line from the fingertips down to that outer edge of the back foot. So let's just take a few more breaths, going to wherever that arm felt good for you. And when you feel tired, you're just going to slowly engage the core, pull that belly in, press the hand into the thigh, lift up, re-bend that back knee, and we're right back where we started with the legs wide. We'll take that first leg and bring it forward, scoot ourselves to the other edge of the chair, and open the other leg nice and wide. Good. And then we're going to drop this front knee down to start off, and then start to step the foot back, and then open the toes forward. Drop that foot down. Good. It's kind of wiggling into what feels good here. Begin to bring the forearm to the thigh. This is the pose right here, right? You can really feel the opening in the side body, and you can feel the work that's going on here with a chair. You can keep the hand on the hip or reach back, open up that heart, arching the spine slightly, but pulling the low belly in. It's a little hard to breathe here. Go to where it feels better for you, to where the breath is a little more fluid. And maybe close your eyes and imagine what you look like. Notice what this feels like. A little bit of proprioception and interioception. Awareness of the space around us and inside of us. Slowly coming back up, bring the back foot forward, and then both feet come back together, and we're back in our seated mountain pose. Let's take 2 deep breaths here. All right, now for our warrior one or high lunge, a little bit of a variation. So this time we're gonna take, last time we opened this front foot wide, but this time we're gonna scoot over toward the other edge and drop the other foot back, and then take this other foot, I know I'm saying other and other, the first leg over. So what I want is to be having the base of my thigh on the seat of the chair and the knee bending over that far edge, okay? That's what we're looking for here. A little bit of a stretch. And of course you can slide further and further to that front edge. Now the back foot, we're gonna stay up on the ball of that foot. The heel is gonna stay up, and you can keep this knee dropped down for the whole time, or you can stretch it back and that will be your full lunge. And I wanna scoot around till I can get that front foot on the floor, and I'm gonna start pushing myself up off the chair, pressing into that front. You should start feeling this right away. This is the pose, you guys. Feel free to continue to reposition. I'm gonna pull the back toes under a little more so I get a little more heel stretch. The heart is facing toward that knee that's bending over the chair, and the hands can rise up. High lunge, and you can feel what's going on here that's gonna help us with all of our balance. Eventually I'm gonna lower the hands down, slide myself more onto the chair so that I can then drop the knee down in front and just let it kind of rest. The toes are still kind of relaxing behind me. The toes are just gently curled. Good. Now we're gonna do a little seated twist before we go to the other side. And we're just gonna start pointing our heart toward the front knee and then turn our heart toward the back of the chair. Lift the heart up and down a few times with the breath. Unwinding, we're going to come back to center, stepping the feet around, scooting this blanket around. Okay, let's pause in the middle, maybe a few cat-cows, maybe some shoulder rolls, starting to get tired, getting into those deep muscles in the hips and the back. And then I'm going to start to slide to the other side, rocking my knees down. I want to scoot myself back to that far edge of the chair so the knee is bending over it, and then the other leg steps back. Good. And then I'm scooting around until I can feel the sole of that front foot and the curving, lifting back heel. This is a great place to stay right here. You're getting this wonderful stretch on the thigh. And because of that stretch, the hip is being stressed slightly, and we're lifting the heart. And you can continue to add to this by gently lifting yourself off the chair, pressing the back of that front leg down onto the edge of the chair, pressing into the back heel. Maybe the hands come up. Keep adjusting until you feel really stable. Just enjoying wherever it is you're feeling this stretch. Be aware of too much arching in the low back. Try to draw the low belly in. Coming out whenever you're ready. Coming back down. We're just gonna drop the knee that was reaching out behind us right down beside us, keeping that toes curled under but relaxed. Facing forward again, we're gonna move into our twist. Reaching for the back of the chair. Long 3 breaths here. Coming back to center as we unwind and bring our feet forward. Okay. We've done all of our standing poses so far seated, which I find delightful. I feel very supported. I hope you do too. Let's go ahead and stand up, but let's do it mindfully, leaning forward. I walked my feet in slightly toward the chair, coming into that chair pose, maybe pausing to feel the work in the thighs and the low back, and then gently stand up. And I'm gonna step over to one side of my chair. I'm gonna take the blanket off so it's not slippery at all. And we're gonna move into our half moon pose. So we wanna spread the feet apart. I might have to scoot my chair just a little bit. I'm gonna point the toes that are near the chair under the chair. And they might go under the chair. We kind of have to get into the shape before we know exactly how far we want to be from the chair. I'm going to start to bend that knee. The back foot is pointing forward right now, but I'm going to come up onto those toes. And I'm going to start by just putting my hand on the chair, feeling this side stretch. Nice, I like the side stretch here. And then starting to straighten the front knee, coming up onto those back toes. And this is where we might stop. We might just take the hand straight up. Or we might drop the foot down. I think I'm going to have to step my foot slightly away from the chair to get a little better leverage. And I might lean into the chair, my hand moving to where it feels good, and then lifting that back foot up. Opening the heart, opening the hips. This is the pose, half moon or crescent. And I'm wobbling here. And of course you could just keep the knee bent with the toes on the floor. You don't have to come all the way up. Okay, let's go ahead and come down on the back foot, press yourself up to standing. We're gonna do that one more time, getting a little lower with our arm. So of course you can just repeat what we've just done or see how this feels. I'm gonna start to lean in. I'm gonna grab around that far edge of my chair and place my elbow down on the seat. I might have the front hand in front of me to help stabilize me as I start to come up onto the standing leg. The back leg lifts up, and then maybe the top hand opens. Nice, deep breaths here. Remember, it helps to have a spot that you're staring at, helps you to focus, helps the balance a little bit. Let the neck get longer. Stay as long as you like or come in and out of the pose. And we're gonna slowly come up when we're ready. Woo. Nice. I have to say, that's my favorite. I feel like I could probably hang out there for a while. I'm gonna come around to the other side of the chair and move it down slightly. So I'm gonna do the other side. We start by pointing those toes toward the chair. The back foot steps back a little bit. Good. We're gonna bend into the front knee and put the hand on the chair at first. And this is such a nice spot right here. We probably could hang out here for a while. Think about all the movements in your life, all the agile things you need to do that involve these muscles that you feel being engaged here. Picking things up off the floor comes to mind. Golfing, playing tennis, loading the dishwasher, getting things out of the dryer. I don't know, I'm just off the top of my head. And I'm gonna start to lift the back foot up. I might readjust my hand, I might readjust my foot as I shift the weight onto that standing leg and see how that feels. Working those muscles all around the core. What is your breath feeling like? If it's already ragged, then go back to that first standing place and enjoy that with a few more breaths. Nice. Once you've really experienced what this feels like, you're gonna slowly stand up. Coming out of the shape for just a breath or two. And then think about it. What would you like to do? Would you like to repeat what we just did? Or would you like to try placing your elbow on the floor, grabbing that far edge of the chair and coming up from there? Of course, you can use the hand in front to help at first. And then opening up. Wonderful pose here. And there's lots of other things people like to do. They like to grab that back foot. That's called sugar cane. I don't know why. But none of that is important. It's all based on all the muscles that are being worked here. And you don't have to do any of it. And when you feel done, you'll just come on up. Nice. Swinging those hips side to side. Good. We have enough time. I'd like to do the same poses, skipping the last one, without the chair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the chair here in the middle of my mat, so it's there if and when I want it, and I'm just going to step slightly forward. Okay, so our first standing pose was extended side angle. I'm going to start to spread my feet apart. Okay, and the chair is right back there. If you wanted to sit on it, you could. Turning the toes out, bending into the knee, and bringing my forearm to my thigh. Here's our pose, and you can see the chair behind me. You can see where I would have been sitting, or you can go ahead and sit on it. Hand can come to the hip. On the chair, we reached back with the top hand. I love that feeling, that stretch. You could also bring the hands straight up, using the soles of your feet to really be in contact with the floor, with the mat. And then, of course, all full color, the deepest part of this pose is the arm coming over, reaching up. And rather than reaching over the head, what we really want to do is reach up so that that back heel is on a long line of energy from the hand. Good. And you can come down with the arm, press up, woo, and turn those toes forward. And we can keep the feet wide apart, maybe take a little wide angle fold, the spine is still long. And then we'll move to the other side. Other toes turning out. Back foot simply parallel to the long, short edge of the mat there. Bend into the knee. And we don't want the knee to come past the ankle, so we want to pull it back a little bit. And let the forearm come to the thigh. This is the shape right here. Take a few deep breaths. Feel free to add the arm. And enjoy this shape. And if you're not enjoying it, sit on the chair and try that again, or just come on up. Remember, you get to be in charge of you. Moving up on the exhale, turning forward. Let's bring the feet together for our standing mountain pose. Feet about hips width apart, heart lifting. Breathing deep, let's roll the shoulders a few times back. Good. And then just take one deep breath, standing nice and tall. All right, and then we start to step the feet wide again, and we'll move into our warrior one lunge. Now, as an option, you could grab a blanket and put it right beside what will soon be the back foot. All right. What we're gonna do is turn the right toes out, those first toes, and then we're gonna we're gonna bend the knee a little bit and come up onto the back toes and maybe drop the heel onto the blanket. I know. You don't have to do that. You can stay up on the ball of your foot, heel just rocking back. Good. And then my heart is leaning forward here a little bit. That's okay. You can drop the hips to get the shoulders to come up slightly higher and more stacked over the hips, but that's not important. Be careful with the low back. Keep drawing the low belly in. And this is our high lunge, or our warrior one. This is a very deep warrior one. Take your time, and I'm gonna step my back foot forward, but you don't have to. You could just open yourself wide again. I'm just gonna step it up. Very nice. That felt a little bit like getting out of the car. And I'm just gonna move my blanket to the other end of my mat, so I've got it by my other foot as I step my feet wide apart. Turning the left toes out this time, or your other foot. And I can come up onto the ball of the back foot and maybe drop the heel onto the blanket, or keep that heel up in the air as I bend into the front knee. Choosing my alignment here. I want to make sure that my front foot is not in the same track as my back foot. So I'm going to have to heel toe my foot open a little more. Good. And enjoy the shape. Enjoy the stretch. Notice your breath. And remember how this felt on the chair. Feel free to do it on the chair. Slowly moving out of the shape and back to mountain pose. Okay. We only have one more variation of our standing poses to try, and I'm going to use a blanket under my knees. Now remember, you can do this on the chair. This is going to be our twist. So I'm going to stand behind my blanket, bending my knees so deeply that I can reach the floor, walk the hands forward and bring the knees down to the ground. So now I'm in table pose. I'm gonna just step one foot forward and come up to my knight's kneel here, stacking shoulders over hips over knee. So then if you have a knee issue, that's another really great reason to sit up on the chair. Let that one knee come forward and the other knee drop down. Good. And we're just gonna take our hands together at our heart and then turn our hearts and our hands toward that front bent knee, and maybe come down touching the knee with the elbow. The other elbow might reach up. Feel that deep twist. And of course, you could just be in a high kneel with the twist without the lean. It's all good. And then slowly turn forward. Plant the hands down and step that front foot back. Take a moment, maybe rock back and forth a few times, making sure that everything is nicely lubricated. Considering if the other knee would prefer for you to be sitting on your chair, feel free to stand up on the chair. Stepping the other foot forward, coming up into that knight's kneel. I want to make sure that my front heel is right under that front knee. And then I can bring the hands to the heart. My back toes are curled under for stability, but they don't have to be. I'm going to start to turn toward the hip connected to that front knee, and then maybe I'm going to tip the elbow toward the knee. Take a breath here, just enjoy the twist. Using the core to rise up. Plant the hands and step that knee back. Feel free to stay on hands and knees for a couple more breaths, maybe a cat-cow or a child's pose. But if your knees have had enough, we're just gonna move slowly to seated with the knees together, kind of one sliding slightly off the other, the feet pointing in one direction, the knees pointing forward. We're gonna move into our same twist that we did at the beginning of class. This is our seated knee together twist. Twisting away from the feet, we lean up, lean up. I'm kind of leaning back just slightly, so I'm really tall. This pose reminds me of a mermaid sitting on a rock. Just feel the ocean spray in your face and take another breath. And then we're gonna lean back, bring the legs around to the other side. Good. My chair is in the way a little bit. I'm gonna move it down. And then I'll twist. Coming forward, I'm still sitting on my blanket. If you're not, you can feel free to grab one, and we're gonna stretch the legs out wide. Wiggling those toes, we're gonna take our wide angle forward fold, just a slight hinging forward in the hips. Maybe the knees need to buckle a little bit, that's totally fine. You can leave the arms wide, maybe reaching toes, or maybe just planting them in the front of you for support. Let's breathe nice and long. You should be feeling a little bit tired, a little more work in the sides of the middle of the back, or the lower back. And one more breath. Leaning back. I'm gonna lift the knees and legs with my core and bring the soles of the feet together and let the outer edges of the feet touch the mat as the knees spread apart. Now I'm pretty far away from my feet, so I'm gonna take my hands behind me and scoot myself slightly forward, but you don't have to go very far to feel the stretch as you walk your hands closer and closer to you, behind you, and then let those knees open wide apart. I'm gonna hang out here for my cobbler's pose, but you can of course bring one hand forward, the other hand forward if that feels good. I'm just gonna take 3 deep breaths, really allowing the inner leg to open and stretch and the front of the body to lift gently, the back engaging. This is the safest forward fold in the world, mostly because we're leaning back. One more breath. All right, and I am gonna bring my knees together, step my feet out nice and long, take a few deep breaths, point and flex those toes. Okay, now we have a couple of options here at the end of our practice. So one of them is a headstand variation or prep. Some people call it that. Headstand, what we need for headstand is to have the hands linked together, the elbows bending, and we're gonna put our head right on the ground, right between those elbows. But you'll know if that's a good spot for you and that your neck will not be pressured if, when you take your hand up in the air and you drop the forearm over your head, if you have a straight line from elbow to wrist and a straight line from elbow to armpit. That means there's enough space between your elbow and your armpit for your neck to not get compressed. If you're on an angle like this, then that probably means your arm it is the right length for you, but it's not a good length for headstand. So if you're interested for headstand, all we're gonna do is come back onto hands and knees. And those of you who aren't interested in trying this, feel free to come back to table pose or roll up onto your spine. Do some happy baby or some apanasana. I'm gonna bring my elbows down under my shoulders, hands coming together, linking the fingers, planting the crown of my head on the floor, but I'm not gonna put any pressure on the head, only on the elbows. And I actually wanna make sure my elbows are only as wide apart as my shoulders, and I do this by taking one fingertip and making sure that it touches the middle crease of that elbow, and then the other one to the other elbow, good. Planting my crown of my head, I'm gonna start to lift my knees off the floor, and this is a great place to stop, right here. If you're interested in going a little higher, you could place your feet on your chair. We're looking for trying to get our hips up over our shoulders. Not super easy to do. You could lift a leg, see how that feels, one leg at a time. When you get tired, you're gonna come down. Remember, you're pressing into the elbows, not the crown of the head. And we'll gently come down. And we're just gonna rock our forehead onto the floor, reach out through the arms and rest for a couple deep breaths. They say you should stay in child's pose for at least as long as you were up on those elbows. And taking your time to slowly lift the head so you don't get too much of a head rush. Okay. Now, you have two options here. For our last 5 minutes, you can either do bridge pose or you can do a very optional shoulder stand. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you're gonna grab 2 blankets, at least 2. I think I'm gonna need to fold them a couple times. I wanna get them pretty high. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab a block, so I have it nearby. And I'm going to, I just need to see how I'm gonna do this. There's lots of different options here. I'm gonna lay back so that when I lay back, the top of my edge of my shoulder seam on my shirt is right on the edge of the blanket and my head is rolling back. Yeah, that feels pretty good. I'm gonna slide my block up under my hips so I have a nice line from my shoulders to my hips, and then I might simply place my feet on my chair. And this is a nice little shoulder stand prep. You can feel the energy flowing down toward the head. Take a deep breath or 2. And then you might place your feet on your chair and lift the hips just slightly. That's our bridge pose, right? If you're just practicing bridge, you're just gonna be coming up and down or holding the shape. And then the hips can come back down, and I'm gonna roll over and get a little closer to my chair so that I can get a little deeper into my neck. And you don't have to do that. You might at this point have decided you're in bridge pose and you have your block up under your hips and maybe you have your legs in the air and you're just letting that inversion do its work. All right, let's see how this works. Coming back onto my blankets, sliding that block up under my hips. My feet are on the chair. And sometimes it feels good if you can reach the chair with your hands. That's an interesting position to be in. Okay. And then we'll start to lift the hips up. And my neck is really relaxed. My head is just grazing the floor, a little bit of pressure there. This is a really nice shoulder stand. Taking deep breaths, feeling the inversion. And of course, you might eventually bring those legs up, maybe just one by one. Take your time. As you feel ready, you'll just settle back down. And we're just gonna roll off of those props. Taking some deep breaths. Notice how you feel. If you're feeling okay, then congratulate yourself. If you skipped that today, congratulate yourself for paying good attention to what you need. And we can move into our final resting shape of Shavasana. Since we have the chair here, we could move into that totally relaxing shape of placing the legs over the chair, bending the knees, just letting the back relax. Feels so good. Or you could stretch out, full Shavasana. Just let your heart beat and your breath slowly calm down. Allow your mind to slowly become more and more present, noticing the sounds around you, noticing the sensation of the breath, how it feels when you breathe in and out. You might take a moment to go back over the poses that we practiced today, those movements, beginning to integrate them into our lives and the movements that we take every day. Making room for a little bit of gratitude. Let's walk through our metta meditation or our gratitude meditation, beginning with our own heart. Feel free to let one hand touch your belly and one hand touch your heart, or your hands to rest together wherever they feel good. Take a deep breath in and out. And offer some thanks for yourself, for your body, for your life, for your breath. Remembering good things that you do, that you have done, that you will do again. Giving yourself a mental hug. And then widening that circle, let's include the people that we love most, the people who are available to us, to support us, to see us and hear us. Send love their way and deep gratitude for them being in our lives. And then expanding the circle even wider, include people that you don't really know, You know, people that you wave at on your walks, or someone you've seen on a corner or in a store. Include them in your gratitude and your love. Just saying to yourself, may they be happy. May they be healthy. May they know love. Take a few more deep breaths, feeling the circle of love around you. And then if you're available for it today, think of someone who is really hard to love. Someone who you've had disagreements with, that you just can't be around them. And send them some love. Saying to yourself, may they be happy, may they be healthy, and may they know love. And you don't have to stay there very long, just bringing your awareness back into your own heart again, remembering your goodness, allowing the person their humanity, just acknowledging for a moment that we are all human. And then begin to really understand that awareness of humanity and include all living beings, all humans everywhere, plants and animals. And we say to ourselves, may they all be happy, may they all be healthy, and may they all know love. And feel free to say that a few more times to yourself with some more deep breaths. Taking your time, feeling the full extension of your love and your gratitude reaching out from your heart into the world this morning. And then gently allow that love to slowly fold back into your own heart again. Take a few more deep breaths, maybe smiling a little bit, maybe making a plan for something good today. Another few breaths of gratitude. And then beginning to move your fingers and your toes. Gently bending the knees, maybe rocking a little bit. If you've had your legs up on the chair or in the air or up the wall, just taking your time to slowly roll over to one side. Feel free to sigh a little bit. Coming up to your favorite seated position. Hands coming palm to palm, bowing the head. I thank you for being here today. Namaste. Thank you for practicing yoga with me today. If you enjoyed this session, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Have a great day.